1 Peter verses 17 through 21. It's going to be great. So, Simon says, so a little recap. 1 Peter is a letter from Peter to Christians in the early church who were dealing with persecution. You see, Peter talks about hope for Christians in the midst of the persecution that they're facing and how they need to conduct themselves in this midst of persecution. Okay? So, I'm going to read you guys 1 Peter 1:17 real quick. We're going to go through it. So, starting in verse 17, it says, and if you call on him as Father, who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile. So I believe that part that's highlighted there, it says, conduct yourselves with fear. And if you're like me, who was reading that verse, I just thought to myself, like, God, like, what do you mean conduct yourself with fear, right? So I feel like in the Bible, the verse is telling us to, right, fear not. Handwriting kind of trash, but it's all right. So, okay. All right. Fear not, okay? The Bible tells us to fear not, right? This verse is telling us to fear not. Like, God, like, what do you mean from our Spanish-speaking people? Okay, right? What does that mean? What are you trying to tell us here? You're telling us to conduct yourselves with fear. That's confusing, right? But you gotta understand, the fear of God doesn't necessarily mean to be afraid of God. It doesn't necessarily mean to be scared of God. It means to have a respect in awe of him and who he is and what he's done. I'm setting up for you. The fear of God means to have respect in awe of him and what he's done and who he is. Okay? You gotta understand, when you look in the world today, the world lacks fear of God, right? The world constantly mocks God. You can turn it on TV and see different things talking about, oh, God is this, and taking Jesus, right, and making him out to be some other God who he really isn't. The world is always mocking him. And most importantly, the world is always persecuting his people. You go to overseas, you go to other countries, Christians are being put to death for what they believe in. They're being put to death for serving God. But you got to understand that these people, they don't just necessarily hate you, they hate God. So don't take that personally. So I'm going to read you Proverbs 8:13. It says, the fear of the Lord is hatred of people. Pride and arrogance and the way of people are perverted speech I hate. Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Okay. So like I said, the world lacks fear of God. But you got to understand, to know God is to fear him. So in summary, the fear of God is a holy carefulness that is rooted in the respectfulness and love that you have for him. This just is a deeper layer. I'm going to say it again. The fear of God is a holy carefulness that is rooted in the respectfulness and love that you have for him. So today I'm going to give you 3 reasons as to why we need to respect God today. So, first reason we need to fear God. He gave us citizenship in heaven. Okay, let's break that down. Let's break that down a little bit. So, verse 17 earlier, like we talked about, it says, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile. And as I read this, I got caught up in this word exile, right? Exile. Okay, when I read this, I'm like, okay, God, exile? Like, God, like, I'm from here. I'm from earth, right? This is where I'm from. okay? I'm from earth. I'm from here, God. Like, you're calling me an exile, but I don't necessarily understand what you're trying to say here, exile. But you got to understand that as Christians, we are representatives of God, but exiles to the culture of the world, right? Like I talked about earlier, the world hates God. They hate Jesus. They mock him. They disrespect him. But check this out. It says, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you are of the world will love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I choose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. And I feel like oftentimes we get in the world as believers and we conduct ourselves one of two ways, right? The first way is we put ourselves in a bubble, right? We love Jesus, we're going to stay over here in this bubble. This is the Jesus bubble. This is us. Make sure I spell bubble right. This is us. We get in this Jesus bubble right here. Safe from the world. They're safe from the world. We're staying away from the world. We're staying in our own bubble. That way we can stay pure away from the evil and sin and hatred in the world. That's one way. But I feel like we sometimes also get in this other space where we get of the world, right? We get of the world. Sorry, I'm having too much fun. We get of the world, and then people can't distinguish between us and Christians. We're doing the same thing that unbelievers do. We're doing the same things they do, so it's like, oh, Hunter's just like us. He doesn't do anything different from us. He talks the way we talk. He treats us the way everyone else treats. He uses a certain language that's rude and crude and cusses up a storm just like we do. So there's really no difference between us as Christians and unbelievers in the world. And that's what the world wants. The world wants you to get this way. The world wants you to be like them. So when you hate Jesus, or when you hate the culture, the world or the culture hates you. Because you don't want to do the things they do. And then since the culture hates you, you develop this fear of culture. You develop this fear of the world. You develop this fear of man. But you have to understand the fear of God overrules the fear of man. Because at the end of the day, when you have a fear of God, you have a fear of someone who is everlasting. You have a fear of someone who is eternal. When you fear the world, you fear something that isn't going to be here forever. You fear something that is perishable and is going to fade away. That leads me to my next point. We need to fear God because he gives us true wisdom. I'll read you guys Proverbs 1:7. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So I'm going to underline this word right here. The fear of the Lord is the what? Beginning. Say it with me, y'all. Beginning. Say it one more time. Beginning. Now everybody, beginning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning, okay? It doesn't say the fear of the Lord is the middle, right? It doesn't say that, right? It doesn't say the fear of the Lord is the last, right? It says the fear of the Lord is the beginning, right? Beginning, okay? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So you understand that true wisdom comes when you understand who God is. You're probably like, Hunter, break that down, please. I don't understand what you're saying. Okay. So Deuteronomy 10:12 says, and now Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. So understand that knowledge is out of place when the fear of God is in first. Say that again for you. Knowledge is out of place when the fear of God is in first. You see, like I said earlier, let's go back to Proverbs. Here we go. Oh gosh. Okay. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning, right? Now, when you put the fear of the Lord in the beginning and not the middle and not the last, when you receive knowledge and wisdom from the world, you get to filter it through the first thing. I don't know if you guys see like a filter, but when you put stuff through a filter, it catches all the dirt, right? I know I was cooking rice the other day, or my girlfriend was cooking rice the other day, and I was spectating because, I can't cook. So, I can't cook. My girlfriend was pouring the rice, and she was pouring the water through the rice. Into the filter. The filter caught the rice. You see, yeah, the filter caught the rice. You ever had filter? Oh, strainers. Strainers. See, I told you I don't cook. I don't cook. I told you. So the strainer, my girlfriend's back to that. Sorry. So the strainer caught the rice. The strainer caught the rice, okay? And that's what the fear of God does for us. We receive all these words of wisdom and knowledge, right, from the world and from the culture. But when you pour it through the fear of God, and that's the first thing it goes through, all the bad stuff, all the wrong stuff, all the sinful stuff is being caught by the strainer, which is the fear of God. That way you only have the good stuff. You only have the true wisdom. And like I said again, knowledge is out of place when the fear of God isn't first. The last thing I want you to understand, when you have that true wisdom, you understand that we need the fear of God because he redeemed us. You see, Adam and Eve, first humans in the world, came into this world and they were tempted and they brought sin into the world. And that sin separated us from God. So we needed redemption. We needed to be redeemed. And so understand, I'm going to read you guys these verses 18 to 21. It says, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown because the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you, who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. Understand that we were redeemed, but we weren't redeemed with just anything. We weren't redeemed with perishables, right? We were redeemed with things like silver or gold that are going to fade away and aren't going to be here forever. We were redeemed with the precious blood of Christ. And that's just not anything. So I feel like sometimes we forget the weight of that. God loved us so much that he sent his one and only son to die for us. And I don't know how you guys feel, but that's love. That's real, true love. And as Christians, we have been redeemed. And because of this, we not only need to be grateful, but have respect, awe, and fear of God. So I just want to challenge you guys today. Like I said earlier, we live in a world that disrespects God. We live in a world that mocks God. We live in a world that persecutes Christians. And in 1 Peter, Peter is writing to those people. Those people are being persecuted for what they believe. But even in that, they still understood that God gave them citizenship in heaven. They still understood that God gave them true wisdom. They still understood that He redeemed them. So I challenge you guys to live like that today. Live like you know those things. Act like you know those things. Talk like you know those things. And treat others like you know those things as well. And live with respect, awe, and ultimately a fear of God.